This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. What's up and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I react to the comments that you leave on the videos. One of my favorite videos to do every week. Let's jump into it. We're talking about Deshaun Watson and what he must do in 2024. This is a video where I gave out my statistical expectations for Deshaun Watson. One of the things to remember is that the expectations for Deshaun Watson aren't just going to be exclusively based in the stats. But if I'm talking about Deshaun Watson statistically going above my expectation, I want to have a tangible point of reference for what I actually expected him to do. So, you know, this doesn't include the things I talk about where like, hey, Deshaun Watson, you feel pretty good about him as a quarterback, or what you would feel good with if he wins. So while there were a lot of comments talking about what they wanted Deshaun to do as far as a win-loss standpoint, that's not what this video was on. You know, we're going to talk about that as the season goes on. And I've been very clear with how I feel about what Deshaun needs to do from an emotional standpoint or a wins and losses standpoint. The Browns need to be, by the time that the playoffs start, a serious Super Bowl contender, right? A serious contender to make the AFC Championship game, win the AFC Championship game, and get to the Super Bowl. Like, they need to feel like one of the best teams in the AFC in order for Deshaun Watson to meet expectations. That's where I've been at with it. But that's not what I was talking about in this video. This video is more about the statistical element of the expectations for him. Sectioner says, speaking of Pro Football Focus grades and big time throw percentage, how the hell did they grade Deshaun Watson with a 0 in the win at Baltimore? Well, that makes sense, to be honest with you, that he didn't get a big time throw on Pro Football Focus for that game, because it's not like he had to make a ton of big time throws, right? The big time throws that are going to get graded big time throws are like those passes to Amari Cooper in the Arizona Cardinals game where he's like hitting a super tight window and it's a well-placed ball and all of those things, like where he has to go above and beyond with ball placement. That's going to be a big time throw. Plays where you're just making smart decisions and you're getting the ball downfield and you're not having to fit the ball in windows, those aren't going to be graded as big time throws. And that's why you can't just use big time throws by themselves to judge whether a player has had a successful season or not, because it's not a great measurement by itself. What it is a good measurement is when you use it in the context of other stats, right? A big time throw percentage that's high with a completion percentage that's high and an average depth of target that's high would suggest that this guy has a high hit rate of throwing the ball downfield, right? Like, that would matter a ton. So it's about how that number appears with other numbers and how that paints a bigger picture instead of the number alone. But as far as him not having big time throws in Baltimore, no, when I watch that game, I don't see anything that I would grade personally as a big time throw in that game, because he didn't have to. He had to be smart in that game. That doesn't mean bad. It just means that he didn't have what that stat was looking for. The next question, or not question, comment is from Cleveland CBI. So in other words, his bar is almost identical to Baker in 2023. 29 touchdowns, 10 turnovers, 4,207 yards, 64 completion percentage. So this stat line is actually false. Baker Mayfield had, I believe, 10 interceptions and 3 fumbles lost in 2023. So we're talking about 13 turnovers. The reason that distinction is important is the context of what that viewer is reacting to. He's talking about the bar for Deshaun Watson. And if you look at the bar, Baker Mayfield does qualify in 2023. He is over 4,200 total yards, I think, when you add in his rushing. 29 total touchdowns. He's under that. Again, you have to be over 29 total touchdowns. He was under 29 total touchdowns. I believe he had 28 passing and 1 rushing. So 29, not over, he's under. So he doesn't pass that bar. Less than 13 total turnovers. Obviously, he didn't get over 13 total turnovers. So he's not clearing the bar there. And then when it comes to these advanced numbers, right, the completion percentage wasn't there. The A-dot wasn't there for Baker Mayfield. The turnover worthy play wasn't there for Baker Mayfield. The big time throw. So basically what you're pointing out in that comment is that Baker Mayfield's 2023 season would not have passed the bar for Deshaun Watson in 2024. And I agree with that. It would not be enough. Right. Which brings me back to the point. The bar is going to be higher for Deshaun Watson. Because again, Baker made the Pro Bowl off that season. Everybody said that was a great year for Baker Mayfield. That is not a good enough season for Deshaun Watson to have for me to consider him to pass the bar. And another thing to remember, even if you want to argue that he's close to the bar, right? Baker's close to the bar that I mentioned for Deshaun Watson is literally the lowest expectation I can have of him and call it a success. And Baker Mayfield was underneath that. I don't know why we're still talking about Baker Mayfield in 2024, but you brought him up. So even then, he's not clearing the bar for what we expect for Deshaun Watson, or at least what I expect for Deshaun Watson. And we're not even talking about what we hope he achieves or what we feel like he's most capable of achieving. We're just talking about what the bare minimum is for Deshaun Watson for this season to be called a success. In that context, bringing up Baker Mayfield really makes no sense in the way that you're bringing him up, because I'm pretty sure you're bringing him up to say, oh, we should have stuck with Baker or something like that. So if that was your point, that we should have stuck with Baker because the numbers were under what Deshaun Watson's bar is, I don't think that's a great argument, but somebody's going to make it because people love Baker Mayfield in this city, and rightfully so. Baker played well while he was here. It's just he ain't been a quarterback here for like 3 years, dog. Like, I don't bring him up anymore. I don't know why people continue to bring him up. The Browns, day 2 of joint practice recap. Ooh, there were a lot of reactions to this one. Chris Gustafaro said, I'm not going to panic just yet. I'll be panicking 4 games in, and the problems with the offensive line continue. I don't think me bringing up, or anybody bringing up, the fact that the Browns have a bit of an issue or they're not looking as crisp or clean here in this area in training camp is ever reason to panic. Like, panicking is not really the most helpful thing to do in general, but I don't think anybody should panic because, James Hudson doesn't look good out there at left tackle. Again, just take a deep breath. I know we're all anxious for the season, but I think we need to relax, because I thought I was just bringing up a problem that I had mentioned earlier with the team. I'm not trying to create a doomsday scenario around it or saying that not being as good as we hope is going to tank the whole season. Let's take a deep breath. I don't know why there's been so much negativity in the air over the last couple of days in Browns world, but let's take that deep breath and realize that it is way too early to panic. I agree with you. KR says, just to add a couple of pleasant things, I think Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore have been doing well, and the defensive rookies from last year have been stepping up. Martin Emerson has been certifying his reputation. Breeze can be found anywhere, knocking people down. And the O-line and our run game without Chubb has me concerned, but that's because they were relying more on Watson and our tight ends. If anyone additionally gets injured, that's a scary prospect. Let me get to the first part. Yeah, it is nice that you're seeing these good clips out of Jerry Jeudy, and that the pass game, when they are getting protection, does seem like it's going pretty well. The second part, the offensive line, our run game without Chubb, has me concerned because that means we're relying. Yes. That's my major concern, right? And it's not a concern that means, if this happens, the Browns are going to be a horrible team. This just means that this is going to be something that's inconvenient. And the reason to be inconvenient if they don't have a run game outside of Nick Chubb is when they're playing without Nick Chubb, and who knows how long that is, probably be maybe a week to 4 weeks to 6 weeks, right? Who knows where we're at with Nick Chubb, but it feels like we're on a fast track to get him back sooner than later. If you have to play without Nick Chubb, you have to figure out how you're going to get 5 yards on first down, right? That is how offense works. If you can get ahead of the sticks, you can do whatever you want. Last year, the Browns had an issue where they could not consistently get ahead of the sticks. And that meant penalties kill a drive like that, right? One false start, kill a drive like that. One holding, kill a drive like that. And that meant that the Browns had a very high 3-and-out percentage on offense. Still were able to score. And I'm talking about when Joe Flacco was out there, the Browns had a very high 3-and-out percentage. They punted the ball a lot when Joe Flacco was out there. They scored a lot, but they were very volatile. Part of that volatility was because they could not consistently get ahead of the sticks. When they got ahead of the sticks, they were able to do what they want. They were able to move the ball. They were able to score. Bam. But if they got behind the sticks because a run got knocked back a couple yards, or a sack, or a penalty, a false start, or a holding, or a personal foul, all of those things would kill that drive right in the tracks, because we have no way to recover and get back ahead of the sticks unless we hit a chunk play. Nick Chubb is amazing because he allows you to keep ahead of the sticks. He just keeps that engine going. If you don't have a run game that can get you 4 yards or 5 yards on first down, you're going to run into that issue where you're going to have to punt a lot. Think of this like the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Cincinnati Bengals are a very good team. Some would even say a very good offense. But you've noticed, if you watched a lot of Cincinnati Bengals games, is that they punt a lot for a team that's as talented offensively as they are. And part of that is because they don't have the best run game in the world, and they aren't able to consistently conjure up about 5 yards on first down, which means there are drives where that offense is ahead of schedule, ahead of the sticks. They look amazing. They're on time. They're on schedule. They're moving the ball. They score. There are times where that offense can't do anything. They can't get started. They're starting slow and they punt. Getting ahead of the sticks early is so important. So important for offensive success. And Nick Chubb is a huge piece to that. And I would hope that Deontay Foreman and Jerome Ford can be better than they've been to give some of that back to the Browns offense, right? You're not going to have it at Nick Chubb levels, but you want it to be better than last year. And my concern is it doesn't feel like it's gotten better than last year. It almost feels a little worse than last year because we're not hearing anything about the run game. So that is my concern about that. Is like, hey, are we going to be one of those offenses that are going to be pretty volatile because we're going to be punting a lot and putting the defense, the ball in the hands of the defense? We can probably survive with that. We got a good defense until Nick Chubb gets back. Like, if I'm being honest with you, you could probably beat a lot of teams like that, but it is going to cost you in the playoffs. Like, that's when that starts to matter. So, and hopefully Nick Chubb will be back to being Nick Chubb by then. So that is my concern about the run game and where that concern takes me. I don't think it makes the Browns a bad football team. It just means that this is going to be inconvenient for them, and it's going to manifest itself in those ways, or at least it's likely to manifest itself in those ways. This guy here says, whoa, Q. Hold on. This guy here says, whoa, Q. Can't say there haven't been training issues and injuries before 23. All right, so quick bit of context. He's reacting to when I said that I don't think it's the training staff's issues that is causing the injuries that the Browns had last year, just because it's been the same training staff since 2020, and the Browns haven't had the same flare up of injuries that they had in 2023 and any other year. He says in response to that, well, Q, you can't say there hasn't been training issues and injuries before 23. Jakeem Grant, Delpit's rookie year, Ward's glass jaw. The list goes on for significant injuries, not even lingering injuries, because it gets worse. I was beating the drum in 2022, and Jackson and staff need a significant shakeup. I had a serious question. about people who blame every injury that the Browns have on their training staff. What is it that you think that the medical training staff does? Like, do you think they're handing out elixirs to avoid injury? Like, you brought up Grant Delpit's Achilles popping as a thing that you're blaming on the training staff. How? What does Grant Delpit's Achilles pop because his Achilles popped and he was playing football? It just popped. He didn't pop because he's not getting proper treatment from the training staff. Also, it's interesting that you bring up Denzel Ward because one, Denzel Ward has had injury issues since he's been drafted. So that predates Kevin Stefanski. So it's not like this just showed up when the staff came in with Kevin. This has been a problem for a while with Denzel Ward specifically. And the thing that blows my mind about you using Denzel Ward is Denzel Ward has had significantly less injuries since Kevin Stefanski has gotten here than before. He's played in more games. Blaming the injuries on the training staff is just pointing the finger to point a finger. Like, you got to say more than dudes got injured while the training staff was here because they're playing football. Dudes are going to get injured every year you play football because football is dangerous. It's a sport where grown men run at each other at full speed and tackle each other with no intent of caring about anybody's health. What injuries do you think the training staff has control over? And honestly, injuries happening, that's not something that the training staff has control over. That's not what they're there for. Yes, there's some injury prevention stuff. Yes, there's some stretching stuff, but it seems like all accounts that the Browns do everything for injury prevention, if not more than other teams do. So the injury prevention stuff they're doing. The training staff, and when you start to look at the training staff differently and when you want to fire a training staff is when you're seeing issues with the rehab of players, right? Like a better example for the training staff having issues is what happened with Deshaun Watson last year, not the fact that Grant Delpit tore his Achilles a couple years ago. That's a horrible example because it just demonstrates that you're just blaming injuries on the staff, not really blaming the process that they're actually responsible for. But like Deshaun Watson, the constant in and out with the injury there, if that happened more with more players, if Nick Chubb's rehab seemed like it was going very poorly, if you had a bunch of players who seemed like their rehab to coming back from these injuries is coming poorly, like what got the staff fired in Baltimore was that kind of stuff, right? With J.K. Dobbins needing to go back and get another surgery after getting the first surgery because they cleared him too early. Those are the things that get training staffs fired. Injuries happening themselves, unless they're happening because of overworking or because like of weightlifting exercises with the team or something like that would get somebody fired. But like injuries happening on the football field that are clearly caused by playing football, that's silly. That's silly. The Browns' issues with injuries last year were just bad luck. There were all football injuries. It didn't seem like they were stemming from the training regimen or stemming from bad rehabilitation of past injuries. It just seems like they had bad luck with injuries. It's football. I don't know why so many people are intent on like blaming the training staff and thinking firing these people is going to fix that. It's just there's no tangible evidence that was the problem last year. So no, that's silly to me. LaShawn says, I mean, the offensive line is on average around 28 and a half. With two of our starters in their 30s with 10 years under the belt. It happens. Remember, the same thing happened to the Cowboys. Yeah, I think this is a similar thing that happened to the Cowboys. It's just a natural decline of the offensive line from 2020 on and now. I just think not a lot of people have thought about it like that, and they're saying, oh, it's the coach change. And like, nah, it's just a natural circumstance or a consequence of getting older. But yeah, I agree with you, LaShawn. Y'all have a great day. Appreciate the comments. Peace.